Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have multiple yellow warnings still in force, and we have now got an amber warning issued for parts of eastern Scotland tomorrow for the potential for 100 to 150 millimetres falling, which is a real high amount, not only in itself but falling on saturated ground. Could be some flooding issues with that. That is 4 to 6 inches of rain, so quite a huge amount. Yes, it's over higher ground of eastern Scotland where we do regularly see quite a bit of rainfall, but still could cause some severe issues elsewhere as well. There's yellow warnings where we could see again 2 to 3 inches more of precipitation falling, and we could swell the rivers. So over the course of the next week or two we could continue to see more issues, so that is something that we've got to keep an eye on. We'll have a look at the UKV running through the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as it does look likely we will continue to see a lot of wet weather coming in from the west, and it turning even colder with the potential for snow over the higher ground of Scotland and northern England towards the weekend, and more widespread frost. So late at night and early in the morning it's going to start to get really quite cold, potentially temperatures widely dropping below freezing on Friday night, and maybe on Saturday and Sunday as well in areas where the skies do clear. We'll have a look at the longer range, look at the GFS, GEM, Eastern WF and the ensembles, and once again we've got a lot of volatility with the GFS today, right at the end of the run at the start of December, poised for sending us into the freezer with northerly winds coming in, and that would send us into sort of a severe cold spell that has been sort of hinted at in the winter look aheads, with the higher pressure migrating towards Greenland. So that would be incredibly cold if that came off, but it's right in the extended range, and the GM and the Eastern WF at day 10 have higher pressure building in from the south. Again, not going particularly cold at day 10, but it could be a precursor to something a lot colder in that sort of day 10 to day 15 time frame. So once again, it's only in the extended range do we have any hints of this colder weather coming, but it's continuing to stay there, and of course the winter look aheads, as we've alluded to over the last 6 weeks, have all suggested that as well. Our sealing ensembles, regardless of any cold weather coming in, it's going to remain fairly around average for the next couple of weeks, and it's going to remain very unsettled as well. And even though sometimes the upper air temperatures will get average to above average, it's going to probably feel considerably below average because of the cloud and the rain. So yeah, quite a miserable next week coming up, and then as we head into December, potentially something a lot colder starting to brew, but you know, it is very difficult to say at the moment with a lot of volatility in those longer range models. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in description. Now if you start on the live radar, you can see this big band of precipitation across parts of central, northern and eastern areas. It's sort of spiralling around, big occluded front with some very heavy precipitation within it. Now again, we've been banging on about this Scandinavian high for the last week or two, and the Scandinavian high is indirectly causing this big rainfall event. Now, that Scandinavian high is positioned well to our north and our east, but what it's doing is halting the low pressure progression into the North Sea, and instead halting it over the top of us, and it's just dumping all its rain and all its moisture onto us and sort of spiraling around and heading back out into the Atlantic, probably come Friday. So yeah, it could be some big precipitation totals from this, as I said, with the amber warning, and we saw some severe rain in the south and the east over the course of the last night, and it should ease there for a time until perhaps later this week into the weekend it could turn rainy again, but it's now the turn for the north and the east to see this big precipitation. And this rain will continue all of today, and most likely in Scotland at least most of tomorrow as well. Now, recording this around midday, and if we put on those temperatures, you can see it's not particularly mild today, but it's slightly milder than yesterday, with a bit more yellows appearing there, but still reasonably cool. Across parts of the Republic Island, Northern Ireland, and those central areas, temperatures still only a few degrees above freezing, as it got very cold there last night with clear skies, again avoiding most of the rain at the moment. But yeah, it's going to feel pretty miserable under that precipitation. And if we actually go onto the radar and put on the past 24-hour precipitation, again, these are radar estimates, so they're not going to be the most accurate, but you can see that many areas are showing up as dark green and yellow, indicating precipitation in excess of 25 millimetres, getting as high as 50 to 75. So that's 1 to 3 inches over the course of the last 24 hours, and that doesn't take into account all the precipitation that's fallen before that and all the precipitation that's continuing to fall. And it's these areas across eastern Scotland that are already yellow. It's just going to build up even further over the course of the next 24 hours. So yeah, could be some big issues there. And as I said, swelling of the rivers over the course of the next week could mean even just some heavier showers could cause some flooding next week. But you can see huge amount of dark green and yellow here down the spine of the country, even into the East Midlands, into Yorkshire, East Anglia, just widespread, heavy, significant rainfall. Some areas have seen double or even triple the monthly rainfall only in the last sort of week or so. So yeah, ridiculous amount of rainfall, and it's still continuing to fall. If you go over those weather warnings, you can see we've got widespread yellow warning at the moment across parts of eastern Scotland, down eastern or northeastern England, into parts of just generally northern England. You can see it expires 7 a.m. tomorrow, so most of this heavier precipitation, at least across parts of England, should expire tomorrow. And you can see it's been updated to remove parts of North Wales and the Midlands as the rainfall amounts look less likely to be as high in these areas. So yeah, going to be real significant rainfall. And again, we look at the further details, potentially 30 to 40 millimetres widely, maybe 60 to 80 millimetres, again falling over already saturated ground. High likelihood, very high likelihood, lower end of the impact matrix. The Scotland warning continues from today at 3 p.m. until 6 p.m. tomorrow. A spell of persistent and at times very heavy rain will lead to some disruption through Thursday, continuing to Friday, and could cause some flooding. Again, high impact and coming more likely, and where the amber warning is, it's because it is even more likely. 50 to 70 millimetres, quite widely, so that's 2 to 3 inches, in excess of 100 millimetres expected over hills in Angus and Aberdeenshire, and there's an amber warning. And the rain should slowly die out through Friday night. And if we do go to the Friday and have a look at that amber warning, heavy and persistent rain likely to cause flooding and disruption from midnight tonight until 3 p.m. tomorrow. Again, look at those further details. 100 millimetres likely, with potentially as high as 150 millimetres, and the rain should ease later through Friday. But as the Met Office have alluded to, rivers may continue to run high beyond this. So even some rain over the course of the weekend into the start of next week, we could see even more further issues, even if those individual rainfall events are not as severe as this. So yeah, could be quite a bit of disruption coming up from this. We have alluded to quite a lot of stormy weather, and it's because these lows are getting trapped under the Scandinavian high, getting halted and dumping all of their Atlantic moisture over the top of us. It's just another effect of the Scandinavian high. You know, traditionally we'd think of the Scandinavian high giving us easterly winds, very cold weather, but in this sort of scenario where the block is positioned, it's actually giving us very unsettled, stalling these lows as they do run out of steam. So if you go over to the UKV and have a look at those precipitation charts over the course of the next 5 days, we're able to see just that precipitation is just persistent over the course of the next 24 hours. You can see it just runs in from the east and you think it's going to run out of juice, but it just continues and peps up in places through this afternoon and just continues spiralling in. Eventually it does deplete itself across parts of northern England, turning more patchy and just a thicker cloud. But across that eastern parts of Scotland, look, just more waves of intense rain, moisture getting pushed towards the hills, condensing and forming precipitation, and just continue all the way through Friday, for eventually it all slowly clears through Friday evening. Elsewhere, it is reasonably dry through most of Friday, but still some showers could linger in northern England through the afternoon. As we head through Friday night into Saturday, you see clear skies build in for a time, and we could see a widespread frost develop in those areas, or at least temperatures dropping down to the low single digits. Into Saturday, more heavy rain pushing in from the west through the afternoon for parts of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and it should spread eastwards, and by around midnight on Sunday could bump into that cold air, and that's where we could see some snow over the high ground of Northern England and Scotland. Most low-lying areas will be cold rain and will feel quite miserable out there and that should arrive around midnight on Saturday evening, and could be quite heavy, and that could again cause some issues, even though individually it might only drop 10 to 20 millimetres of rain in the worst places. On top of the already saturated ground and swelled rivers, it could cause even more disruption before eventually clearing eastwards and still causing maybe some snowfall issues across parts of northern England and Scotland through the early hours of Sunday. Of course, falling overnight as well, where the temperatures are lowest, we could see some sticking. So yeah, we've got to keep an eye on that. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see a yellow snow warning for the higher ground through early hours of Sunday. Again, that's not too unusual for this time of year, but we've not really seen much of that so far this November, so it could come to a shock for some people, so do stay tuned for that. Could be some snowfall issues over the higher ground this weekend. Beyond that, through Sunday, it is quite a showery day. Again, we've got a lot of wintry showers around, especially over the higher ground, but they could fall to low-lying areas through Sunday afternoon as well. Upper air temperatures are reasonably cold, getting down to freezing to maybe -5 in the coldest areas, and again, could see some hail, sleet, or even an isolated snow shower to even low-lying areas or moderate hills. So, yeah. Keep an eye out for Sunday afternoon. Expect nothing really, but there could be a few snowflakes or wintry showers around. Beyond that, through Sunday into Monday, cold air still around, could see a frost developing once again, and through Monday, heavy rain pushing in from the south, again giving an absolute dumping in central, southern and eastern England, again could cause some more issues there. And again, as it bumps into the cold air, could see a bit of snow over northern Wales and into the Midlands and northern England, where we do have higher ground, expecting maybe 200, 300, 400 metres plus, where we could see some precipitation fall as snow. Beyond that, overnight into Tuesday, that low does sort of come in and eventually just move to our south, and it's all again because of the Scandinavian high, keeping it to our south and sort of blocking it away. Again, if this was a month later, we had much colder air to our north and our east, this could be a major snow event, but not this time with air to our north. Cold, but not ridiculously cold. We can see that from the upper air temperatures. You can see through Saturday, we got very cold air to our east, trying to budge in from the Scandinavian high. Wedged in between another colder air mass coming in off the Atlantic is a slice of milder air, and that's causing the precipitation. Beyond that, you can see it just continually below freezing at the upper air temperatures, and that's why it's going to remain fairly cold and fairly frosty as well. If you look at those max temperatures, you can see this afternoon temperatures widely around that sort of 10 to 12 degree mark, maybe even colder further north, as maybe only 7 to 9 degrees where we do have that heavier rain. Tonight, those temperatures shouldn't drop down too low, maybe towards mid to low single digits in isolated areas, but generally 8 to 10 degrees with thicker cloud around. And by Friday afternoon, those temperatures are not going to rise too much beyond the overnight temperatures, maybe 8 to 10 degrees. Friday night, those temperatures will drop away. Look at that, widely down to sort of the mid to low single digits. Coldest probably across parts of the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, southwest England and Wales, widely down to sort of freezing to 2 degrees or even lower than that. Further east, with more precipitation and cloud lingering, could remain in the mid-single digits. So yeah, it could be really quite cold through the early hours of Saturday. So yeah, do stay wary of that. Into Saturday afternoon, those temperatures are not going to rise all too much, maybe only 6 to 8 degrees, maybe 9 or 10 isolated in a few areas, but going to feel still quite cold and chilly again. Wintry showers and mostly rain showers, but some wintry showers around as well. And through Saturday night to Sunday, again, frost in a few areas, but widely getting down sort of the mid to low single digits, so again, quite cold. And then through Sunday afternoon, still really chilly. Look at that, northern England and Scotland, over higher ground, hardly getting above freezing, and many areas only around that sort of 4 or 5 degree mark. Really, really quite chilly there, and widely, even into central southern England, only getting towards 7 or 8. So yeah, really chilly through this weekend. Again, nothing exceptional, just a generally below average air mass, but we get into that time of year where anything colder than average will produce temperatures getting close towards the low single digits. And through Sunday evening, you can see those temperatures in areas where we do see clearer skies dropping towards freezing, maybe freezing to 2 degrees quite widely, again all dependent on cloud amounts, and into Monday afternoon, again really quite cold. Look at that across the Midlands and Northern England, hardly getting above 2 to 5 degrees, so really quite cold, wintry sort of temperatures there. Again, it is because we've got clearer skies and a colder air mass, but of course with that rain bumping into it through Sunday and Monday, could see a bit of snow for some areas, especially over higher ground, but with those sort of temperatures, wouldn't be surprised if moderate hills saw a bit of wintriness for a time. So yeah, really quite cold coming up over the next few days, and then into Tuesday, again, frosts wherever we see clearer skies, that patch of ground across southern England and Scotland, clear skies producing a frost. So yeah, quite cold coming up this weekend. Nothing ridiculously cold, but generally below average, something we haven't seen for quite a number of weeks. So if we do now go into the longer range, have a look at the GFS, GEM, ECMWF and the ensembles for the next few weeks. You can see the low pressure over the top of us at the moment getting trapped and sort of moving back out into the Atlantic and dropping all this rain on top of us. And the Scandinavian high eventually does get some colder air in, sliding over to the north of this low through Sunday and Monday. And that's why you could see a bit of snow with that. Eventually, though, low pressure does win out from the Atlantic and brings up westerly winds once again around that day 7 mark. And all the way to day 10, we stay fairly westerly. But look to our north, still a lot of blocked, and all these blues, the tropospheric polar vortex, all scattered, indicating the atmosphere still primed for northern blocking. As we do move into the longer term, we see a big ridge of high pressure developing to our north, and watch what happens towards 384 hours. Northerly winds are ready to move in. Bitterly cold air exiting out of Greenland, Scandinavia and Svalbard, heading for the UK. -10 isotherm, close by the -5 line into parts of Scotland. Wouldn't be surprised to get the -10 or -15 line in as well. So really quite cold air mass. And you can see that on the temperature deviation. Look at that, 12 degrees below average, flooding southwards. The potential equivalent temperatures, look at that, ridiculously cold air mass to our north for the 3rd of December. Again, this is one run, and it is something we have been looking at in the longer term, but yeah, it's a real possibility. And this is sort of the chart that shows you how quickly a colder air mass can flood in from the north. Again, another emphasis, look at those dew points, -10 to -20 degree dew points, flooding in from the north, and that freezing line of dew points is just heading into Scotland there at the 3rd of December. So yeah, could be poised to start December on a very cold note from the GFS today. But as we've known, as we have alluded to in the last few videos, it's been very choppy with a lot of volatility around. So I wouldn't be surprised if we went mild and westerly in the next run. But again, just showing you the possibility there is with the blocking to our north, with the atmosphere primed in this sort of way with the blocking. If we do have a look at the GM, see how that does compare in the longer range. Again, low pressure running in at the moment, cold air colliding with those lows through Sunday into Tuesday. That could produce a bit of wintriness, for eventually we go westerly, and right at day 10, higher pressure is coming up from the south. Again, this looks like a very, very mild chart, but as we know, these sort of big warm air advection events where it pushes warm air to our north could very quickly develop into a northern block. So with the atmosphere primed for blocking, this could be a precursor to easterlies. Again, there's not that much cold air to our east, but regardless, it could turn us easterly, which would be colder than average. So very, very interesting seeing the GFS and the GM having big contrasting views. Yes, the GFS was at 384 hours producing a northerly wind, but the GM is complete opposite, pulling up a southerly wind at day 10, again highlighting the model volatility we have at the moment. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if this GM run, if we ran it on another couple of days, produced this high pressure further northwards and started to pull something at least a little bit colder in for the UK. If you go to the ECMWF, again, high pressure to our east, swinging in colder air, colliding with the lows towards the end of the weekend, and then eventually we go westerly, and all the way to day 10, again, high pressure building in, but in a similar fashion to the GM, but definitely ridging further northwards up towards Scandinavia. Again, look at the air masses, warm air pumping to our north, quite a cold air mass actually over Scandinavia, and that could be heading our way beyond that. So all 3 runs today, not producing anything cold really in the reliable time frame, but all again continuing to have volatility, chopping and changing, and still showing higher pressure, trying to push to our north, trying to produce something colder. we would really be let down by the models over the course of the next few weeks if we never actually saw any significant blocking come off, because it keeps getting suggested. We keep seeing it in the longer range charts on those ECMWF weekly anomaly charts we look at. So, it's got a very good chance of coming off. It's just one of those. We've got to keep an eye on it. I think the prime position for any significant blocking at the moment is probably early December. That's when I think there is a high chance we do see something come off, but we'll still have to see. If we have a look at the ensemble members, you can see nothing imminent is turning cold or significantly cold. Look at the upper air temperatures, generally around average, oscillating between a degree above or a degree below. A lot of precipitation around, so staying very unsettled through the rest of November. So a very rainy month. And again, whenever the upper air temperatures are above or below, it's going to feel cold just because of the precipitation and cloud amounts around. So it's going to feel pretty miserable out there. So make sure you do wrap up warm when you do go out. And again, longer term, into early December, that's when we could start to see something colder develop. You can see the operational run there doesn't show anything cold, but as we look to the pressure charts, it was poised to go very cold straight beyond the chart, the sort of the end of the run. So again, we'll have to see how it does play out. And similarly onto the ECMWF ensemble members, again, straight really around average over the course of the next 10 days, with a lot of precipitation around, so staying very unsettled and pretty chilly as well. Big rainfall coming up over the next 24 hours. Make sure you stay safe out there. Amber warning issued. Do keep an eye on those warnings. And of course, could be some more issues this weekend, not only with heavy rain, but could be some winteriness over the higher ground and frost as well. So could actually be some ice issues around for some. Again, not ridiculously cold weekend, but just generally below average. And we're in that time of year where below average is going to produce icy, frosty, and potentially some winteriness out there as well. And of course, the longer range, still very volatile. We'll have to see what happens. Blocking signal is continuing to stay in the model output at that sort of day 10 to day 15 range, and we'll just have to see how it does play out. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.